Hello everyone! Thank you so much for coming to Graphicsly Clip Studio Paint Character Design Workshop. In this workshop, 6 artists will present across the 2-day event. Each artist will cover a different topic in the character design process. We are really excited to learn with you. I'm your host for the session, Mario Quiñones. Before we start, we have some housekeeping items to go through. This session will be approximately 60 minutes long. Use the link in pinned message in chat to ask questions. Due to time constraints, not all questions will be answered. Please respect the presenter during the session and only self-promote and exchange social media info during commercials. All sessions will be uploaded to YouTube later on. This workshop is brought to you by Graphicsly, the official distributor of Clip Studio Paint in North America, South America, and Europe. We cannot do this with our amazing sponsors, Clip Studio Paint and Wacom. Clip Studio Paint is a versatile graphics app best suited for drawing and painting to create a wide range of content. With a wealth of unique features, it helps to create anything from illustrations over manga to concept art and animation. Whether you're a professional or hobbyist, Clip Studio Paint Natural's drawing field, along with its comics and manga features, is loved by artists from all around the world. And built specifically with the artist in mind, Wacom's renowned pressure-sensitive and battery-free digital pen tablets and pen displays allowed countless artists and designers to realize their creative visions. In this session, fashion and culture is presented by Odunsi Ogugu, also known as With Manga Online. Odunse is the co-founder of My Footprint Entertainment LLC and creator of Apple Black and Bakassi, published on Saturday AM and Saturday PM respectively. He also runs a YouTube on how to draw manga and animate art tutorial channel with almost 500,000 subscribers. So now we'll pass the session to Odunse. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hopefully everything's okay and you guys can hear me. My name is Adunze, as you just heard. I'm the creator of Apple Black, published and serialized in Saturday AM. And we are, if you're not familiar with us, we're kind of like, you can think, if you're familiar with Shonen Jump, we're kind of like that, but here in the West. And we're actually going to be getting a lot of our books published starting this summer and be available worldwide, available in bookstores, translated, the list goes on. And I'm the creator of Apple Black over here. This is my shonen style series. And for today, we'll be covering, as you've heard, fashion and culture, at least that aspect of character design and how that can enhance what you're putting together. And throughout this workshop, you will see me design some characters and some potential characters, and also talk about already existing characters and some of the processes that I went through, and like the thought process and my approach to drawing from other cultures, bringing that into my world and making it blend, and how and why that's important, or at least a necessary or just interesting approach to have when putting together your characters. One for starters, I would say that it is a strong promoter of originality, especially if you are drawing from cultures and traditions and history that aren't necessarily touched as much in media today. And if you have strong passion or connection to it, I think it can promote originality in that, from that standpoint, especially with a lot of things being done already. I would say that I'm a firm believer of the idea that a lot of ideas, whether it be designs or even story ideas, have been done before to some degree. It's up to you to kind of come up with interesting ways, new ways to execute. and new ideas, right? Nothing, I don't believe anything is 100% original or 0% original, but wherever you land, you want to land on a high percentage. And one of the ways you can do that is to come up with interesting designs, especially, and to do that is at least interesting designs is one facet of it, at least visually. And a way to do that is to have very strong designs from a fashion standpoint, and that fashion be inspired or influenced by various diverse cultures out there, which also promotes more originality. And that's what we're going to do here. So one of the characters that I'm going to be designing here, as an example, I'm Nigerian, as maybe some of you might be able to tell from my name. And you look at a character here, I'm thinking of doing something fun here about maybe potential character. In Apple Black, my world is filled with sorcerers, and these sorcerers, it's filled with sorcerers, and the world already has some looks and things that are unique to it, part of the world building, and what little things here and there that I've done that make it uniquely Apple Black. So for instance, certain sorcerers in general wear cloaks, and the way I define what a cloak is in the series is having some sort of hood, some piece of clothing that covers the top of your head like a hood. And that's kind of tied to a tradition that maybe it's almost paying respect to other sorcerers that are of higher rank, as well as respect to say the god of sorcery in this world, which is tied to some of the things that I saw growing up, part of my culture, and paying respects, even from a religious standpoint, in church, where you're not, the men generally do not have anything over their head in church, for instance, right? And then that's kind of what I'm doing here, but flipped on its head. So it's little things like that you can bring into your work. Some of it will be very subtle. Some of it can be a little bit more on the nose. And with characters, their cloaks, I can find ways for the cloaks to be different from one another, and also reflect what kind of characters they are. So here we have another character where I'm designing the face, and you can see these marks on the face. And I want to do something here with this design where potentially maybe the back, maybe this is like a weird kind of hood, and the back of the head has another face, right? And maybe this is one of those weird magical twin type characters. And another thing in my culture, with there are several tribes in Nigeria, and one of the things that one of the tribes does, Yoruba to be specific, is the twins, when at a young age, they get tribal marks on their face, and some done for a host of reasons. But one of the most popular reasons is to differentiate between the twins, and so there's usually some kind of burn or marking on the face to separate them. And so you have one going this way, and then the other one could be maybe 3 instead of just 2. And that was a way to kind of differentiate between the twins so you don't get it mixed up. And these are little things that I'm putting into, I'm drawing from, putting into my work to help it stand out. And obviously it's clearly original, as that is not something that you will find as much in anime and manga, or just designs in general, especially with this kind of purpose. So, now that I think about it, we've seen characters like this. Naruto has 3 marks, but I don't actually understand what those marks are. They've been there since birth. But here you can see I'm drawing. It just gives characters a little bit more depth when there is more purpose to your designs, and you can kind of justify the decisions that you are making. And so here I have even though I'm finding a way to draw from my tradition, my culture, and bring that into my world in a way that fits my world. We still kind of have a hood to a degree with the design. We're still able to, have some fun with some really cool character design stuff. Having a character with like a head at the back, um, with a face at the back of his head. They're twins. I don't even fully know this character. I'm really making it up for you guys. And honestly, it's pretty cool. I think I might end up using it. And I'm drawing from it. And also, you want to keep in mind the world that you've built, and you want to build something that fits as well. So this is not just me drawing. I can kind of justify the decisions I'm making. It's not one where I'm designing a character that completely fits that world. I'm just drawing little things here and there to fit mine, but it depends on what you want to do. It depends on the setting, depends on the world that you've built. Sometimes you might want to be more grounded in reality. And so obviously you wouldn't necessarily have these are sorcerers, so I can kind of play around. I've built an environment with the work I'm creating to where I can get away with a lot of stuff. And like I mentioned before, Nigeria has multiple tribes in it, and in my world, I tend to combine the tribes together, even because I grew up. I spent most of my youth in Nigeria, for instance, and sometimes there is a sense of tribalism. Not so much in the youth, like we all get along, but sometimes there could be forms of tribalism between the older generation and things like that. So here, I think I kind of think it's also a fun idea to join the tribes together, kind of as my way of looking past all of that. So this is the character from behind, and maybe they can split bodies or switch faces. Like, I'm already kind of thinking of ideas of how this might actually play out. Now that I'm putting it together, there are other, we've seen characters before in media, whether it be Harry Potter, Naruto, where you have twins kind of like this that can join bodies, or a head at the back of the face. But now I'm blending it with my world. I'm blending it with my culture. I'm drawing from multiple places, and I think that's how you can come up with very interesting ideas, even down to how I would name the character, which maybe I could name one character Taiwo and name the other one Kende, which these are very, very, very popular Nigerian names for twins. Like 9 times out of 10, if you meet a Nigerian and his name is Taiwo, if he tells you or she tells you that they have a twin, this is probably the other name. And doing things like this, especially for someone like me, making content that's very comics and graphic novels that are very inspired by what comes out of Japan, bringing my own culture or cultures that I've researched, and bringing that to the fold, almost even educating people to a degree if they look deeper into it, really helps with originality, helps with creativity, makes you think outside the box even further, especially for people who always trying to make everything very, very Japanese all the time. This is an opportunity to kind of step out of that. The marks on the face kind of give me ideas for what the wand of the character could be. In my world, the wands could really be anything. A wand could be so many, wands are not limited to what you would find in a Harry Potter or a series where they have like a little stick. Here, a wand could literally be anything. It could be a brush, boxing glove, cigarette, and you can kind of, if you're big into anime and manga, you can kind of imagine where one could take that. If a character, for instance, if Cyclops from X-Men was a sorcerer in my world, I think it would be the wand, and wands in my world kind of help Wands in my world help sorcerer cast spells much easier. There are people who are wand users and the people who aren't. So you can see maybe I can either have the claws, maybe because of the markings on his face, maybe he has these two Wolverine type claws, or I could do other things that are maybe a little bit more tied to where I'm drawing from primarily, which is Nigerian culture. One thing I would say is if you're drawing from cultures like this, you might want to not draw from too many at once and combine so many things. Is the same approach you would have when you're, say, coloring a character. You don't want everything to be too saturated all the time. You want to have almost like a focal point, right? And so if you're drawing from multiple characters, multiple cultures, maybe you want like to draw from the same place for maybe 60% of the design. And so I'm drawing from all of that. I'm drawing from my experience from just content that I like. I'm also combining it with the world that I've already built and the fashion of that world and certain things that, most characters wear, and kind of combining it with all the places I'm drawing from. One thing I would mention that I think is very important, and especially as creators, we have to be very careful, cognizant, and respectful to the places that we draw inspiration from, the cultures that we're drawing from. You want to make sure that you're heavily researched properly for a host of reasons. You want to be able to write what you know, draw what you know, be comfortable, and be able to justify the decisions you're making. So there are a host of things that that symbolize. Let's say if you're looking at sticking with Nigerian culture here, which is safe for me to do since I'm Nigerian. There's a host of things that you can draw from that have meanings, and if you're just doing it for aesthetical purposes, just because it looks cool, it can't. You can fall in the traps maybe where you do something that would be disrespectful, right? It'll be easy to do. Say if you are drawing from Middle Eastern countries or something like that, there are certain things to watch out for, and so to be respectful in that regard and not just be using it just for the sake of, oh, it looks cool. You want to make sure you've researched properly. So this is just an example without going into too much detail. I'll come back to it. Here's an example of a character called Obi. And Obi is short for Obinna, which is, again, another Nigerian name. And the character here is you see his cloak and it's tied to his hoodie. So I'm drawing from all these places, but I'm still grounding it in my world, where if the character had a wand, what would the wand be? Would the wand be tied to, maybe what kind of character the person is from a behavioral standpoint, or their culture, or a combination of both? Sometimes that helps me. It also helps me decide what decisions to make, right? Sometimes when you're designing characters, you can go in so many directions, but if you have a purpose from the beginning with a focal point, what you want to focus on, it can help narrow things down. And so I have a character here. There are other principles, obviously, hopefully, I'm sure you guys would have covered in previous workshops in this whole, for this whole event, that I'm sure some of the other artists covered, like a silhouette test, having a strong silhouette, picking the right colors. You still kind of tie in some of those focal point things. You don't want your character to be oversaturating. You have like a bunch of colors going on, some semiotics where you have certain iconography or certain aspects of the design that give off information as to what kind of character we're looking at. And so, doing a lot of gesture drawings, shape language, where triangles sometimes is for the more cunning characters, a circle is for maybe the more enduring characters, and then a square is for leaders, people who are trustworthy and reliable. So all those principles are still at play, but here we're now focusing a lot more on drawing from other cultures. And so here with this, I'm just using my culture as an example, but obviously you could draw from yours, which is what I advise for the most part. With Apple Black and the world that I've built, it's kind of like a combination of many. And so this is a portion in that world where a lot of it is drawing from West African mythology, or Nigeria to be specific. Nigeria mostly because that's where I'm from. That's why I'm comfortable drawing from as well, because it's what I know for the most part. And even though I'm Nigerian, I don't know everything about Nigeria, but it's easier for me to do the research and fill in that gap. Here we have a character, like I said, Obi, and I was the wand here is kind of like an electric yo-yo. Let me see. And I also, when I'm doing some character designs, I also like to have notes as well. It just keeps me thinking. And I have, iteration is key. Sometimes you want to do several versions of it. It wasn't always a yo-yo. It was, whatever this is. But then it turned into this, and maybe you can pull out these blades and you spin and you can do a lot of cool tricks with it. But one of the things I wanted to point out is, say, back to how you name things. Again, this is me drawing from what I know. The name of the wand is Shango Chukwu, and Shango is part of West African mythology, is a god of thunder. And since his abilities kind of tie into that a little bit, I'm playing into that, which is Shango, but it's from the Yoruba tribe mostly. And then the Chukwu part, which means God, and let me write it just in case, just so you guys see it better. The Chukwu part is from the Igbo tribe, which is where I'm from, and that means God as well. So kind of combining the two, which to me gives a very powerful name when you combine the two. I like how it sounds. And like I said, it's helping. Drawing from these places helps some of the decision making. It gives more depth to depth and meaning to the decisions you're making. Because overall, with character design, the whole point, obviously, when it comes to naming stuff, that's beyond character design. That's also like character development, the description, all that kind of stuff. But it also applies to character design. And the whole point is, from a visual standpoint, you want to be able to give off just the right amount of information as best as you can, that is in line, in tune, in the right vibes, if you will, with the original, with the character. Obviously, this is subjective, but as long as you're comfortable with what you have, and hopefully you've done several versions and you've come up with a design that you like, after you've done all of that, I feel you'll be more confident in your, if you can justify the decisions you've made, I think you'll be more confident in the design you end up with ultimately. So that's an example here. And this is just one I've come up with. But now I'm going to do a completely new one. And we'll kind of go through the steps. I'll kind of share my thought process with you guys as I'm designing a completely new character. In my world, there are people called like lords and dark lords. Now, the terms by themselves are not necessarily new, but obviously they have different meanings in this world. And coming back to, again, where this portion of the world that is aesthetically, visually, heavily inspired by West Africa, West African mythology, where I'm from, is going to be inspired by other things and just me coming up with stuff, because I like to make up stuff as well. There are these dark lords who are, you can think of them as, if anybody's familiar with like a One Piece, say the captains and lieutenants, or Bleach, captains and lieutenants as well. But the dark lords are of higher rank. And say I wanted to come up with one. Usually you want to start out again thinking about all those principles, right? Thinking about all those principles. Say I want someone that sells a sense of gluttony. So I'm usually going for a rounder, middle. But I also want somewhat of a triangle to him to help sell. So it's like a soft triangle to help sell the more cunning nature of this character, because I want this character in certain ways you could say maybe he's a villain, and so it's helping me decide. It's helping me make certain decisions, and this is where his head would be. I don't have too much of a neck. And here, if he's of higher rank or at least high status within the world of sorcerers here. One of the things in Nigerian culture is you see the figures like this usually have a staff, right? A staff is a symbol of status in many ways. So for me, knowing that in this world you can have interesting wands, like a wand could be a pocket watch, and maybe the character their ability is tied to time, right? Or a wand could be a pair of dice, a guitar, or drums, which music is part of African culture. I could go the drum route here, but I'm just sticking with an example. This is just a draft of a potential character that I haven't designed yet fully, right? So to a degree, I'm kind of designing it here in front of you guys. Hopefully it's fun. And so I'm going for a staff. I don't really know how it's going to look just yet. I'm just going with vibes for now. Getting some of the shape language stuff going on and going there. And then maybe I want a pose that is more reflective of just like this with the silhouette. It's kind of distinct, but maybe we could still do something interesting, more interesting. So maybe I want a different pose. Still the same thing. It's always good to have iterations of what you're going for. But I have a decent vibe of what I need, right? Like I said, the officers in this world that are cloaks. Cloak is they're dark lords, they're sorcerers, they're all of this, but a cloak is kind of like slang for a sorcerer that's recognized by the governmental body of this world because they wear cloaks, right? So I know for a fact he's going to have some kind of cloak or hood aspect to him. I already know off rip that something like that's going to come into play. Then how I make it look that's unique and distinct to him, I can then look at the culture again, and that could help my decision making and how I want that cloak to fit him and be unique to him. So we go. I know there's going to be a cloak. I have a certain way I do shoes and things like that. One thing again with to help even sell the triangle more, maybe his pants are one that kind of we don't really see that much of his legs, so the overall shape kind of still does the triangle thing while still selling that gluttonous nature to the character. So these are things I'm thinking of at the same time, and I'm coming and applying here. Maybe I have a different pose where you have that pose where they hold the staff on their shoulders. Maybe, right now I'm just also trying to make sure it's a somewhat interesting silhouette, right? And then drawing from, again, culture. Hopefully you guys can see my screen here. So make sure charged up. See my screen here. There's so many things you can draw from. See, this is talking about the marks in Yoruba culture. So different tribes have different reasons for the marks. There are some that give marks to their children as a way to keep monsters away or something like that. So there are a host of reasons. In my world, I already don't do marks where anybody's cutting or burning their babies. So this is more of like maybe a tattoo in a way. Or I could keep the mark depending on the character. But sometimes this could just be tattoo, right? But they're influenced, or it stems from these tribal marks and what I know from there. I'm looking at other designs. You can see some of that here. A good place to look for reference is Pinterest. You have almost like a board that you're drawing from. And these are examples of some of the marks, right? A very common one is, this is a lot, but you usually see like 3. And then I'm drawing these are other things, and all this clothing here, you can see the staff that also, again, that I mentioned, it's a sign of status, right? There are so many things here. Obviously, I can't cover it all in one sitting, but the goal is to kind of be able to justify the decisions you're making. So when you do things, make sure that you understand what they symbolize, what they could potentially symbolize. And even if you want to change that in your world, it's always best to know the foundation, know the rules before you can break them. Here, beads is another one. And beads, especially the red beads for Igbo tribe, for instance. There are 3 main tribes in Nigeria: Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and I'm Igbo. There are other ones, but those are the most popular ones. And in Igbo, the red beads also represent the pain that the Igbo people have endured up until this point. There was like you can say, a civil war at some point in the country. So it's tied to a host of things. And so as long as you understand what a lot of these things mean, this red hat is also a sign of status. There's sometimes red hat with a feather in the cap, which is literally like, a feather in the cap means that he has some kind of achievement, that he has something he's accomplished, a strong sense of achievement. Then you have these masks that could come into play. Let's say I have other ideas for characters that, again, there are part of this part of the world that I've built. So, it's not just one character all the characters are not going to look the same. So there are some characters that I'll be able to draw from these masks and masquerades in my culture symbolize a host of things, and some of them are pointing towards the supernatural, which I think fits very well in the world that I've built. Not these masks over here, but like this right here. Some of them, they look like they'd fit right in with some Studio Ghibli stuff. Yeah, right here. As a kid, these were creepy as hell. So I can imagine coming up with a villainous character that fits this. Anyways, so I'm drawing from all of these places, but looking for, say, a staff. Here are ideas for staffs, right? Speaking of Shango, you see here Yoruba Shango staff. Like I mentioned earlier, the Shango is kind of like a god of thunder type figure, right? So these are designs for staffs that can inspire what I come up with. Some of the staffs always can have like some kind of facial structure to them, which could then take me back to the mask we saw earlier. You see these, and then it just keeps my brain rolling of coming up with ideas of what the abilities would be and how they would work with the wands and so on. So I'm thinking about a host of things, and also doing research respectfully, and combining tribes and all these things. And now, once I feel like I have enough information, and I'm also in that mood because visually I'm transported into that mind state, I can then go back into the piece to continue what I'm doing, right? So see, had that right there. Again, I like for for characters, if you want to sell a sense of danger and cunning, like I said, a triangle is the best way to do that. One of the best ways to do that. And so even with the shoes, I have it pop out. It just a sharp edge, just instinctively, kind of means danger. Some of this again would apply to the colors you choose. Certain colors symbolize certain things. Even like you saw with the beads, the red, you know, is a symbol, symbolizes pain to a degree, but of course it also symbolizes, depending on the chart you're looking at, blood, danger, you know, stop. So I'm sure red will come into play here in some kind of way. Colors like gold might also come into play. So I have this. There's a Yoruba hat that kind of goes like this. Almost like it has horns. But literally let me see if I, do I have that cap somewhere? It's one of the hats. You know, just for time's sake, I don't want to, just believe me. So you have here, I know we're going to get a hood, and I like for the hood to be, say, a big hood. So it would really cover everything, like the cloak. The material you use also comes into play, and you want to use material that is, you know, closer to that culture. But again, then there are still other parts that I want to make sure that visually, even though it looks like it's drawing from this culture, it fits into my world, right? And so that kind of goes back to depending on what you guys are going for, why you're, you know, what you guys are coming up with, what design you're doing. Like I said, it could be very grounded and realistic. And that way you probably not be doing a lot of the things I'm doing. And then other things you want to consider are how complex the design is. For me, especially doing a comic and having deadlines, you don't want the design to be too detailed, because then, you know, this is a character. If it's a character you're going to have to draw over and over and over and over and over and over, then you probably don't want to do that. Again, the gluttonous nature, why have him so big? Because he's that kind of character. And then I have some of the beads coming into play. I have the hat coming into play, but maybe I'll make it red. This is me combining the Yoruba hat with the Igbo one. And so he might have a feather in his cap as well, maybe two. So that'll come into play. I'm looking at some of this stuff, right? Looking at the material, the designs on them, seeing what works, what fits. Some of this is Hausa, some of this is Igbo, some of this is Yoruba, some of this is, yeah, this is the hat. Look at the hat right here. It's giving us a triangle shape already. So that's why I'm going for that one. You can see the beads and how they fall. So I'm going to be using maybe even more beads. Then maybe some, how I want some kind of material and fabric. If you notice, I have just a lot of shapes, shapes with sharp edges. Again, just to sell that sense of danger. And then I have the staff, which we will get to. So I have this rough sketch. I think we have an interesting. Yeah, these horns it actually comes down like we see here. Hopefully you guys can see it. Right? So you have we're creating a character that fits the world, but also draws from other cultures. It's unique, original. Go a little bit to the face. I want somebody that's like a villain, doesn't look very redeemable. It's kind of like he's a very corrupt figure. And this is a rough sketch that will blow up and then start adding more details to. And then you see me picking colors and all that kind of stuff. Maybe I'll lay off the tribal marks here because I can't justify why I would put tribal marks on the character. At least not yet. Might give him a beard. Like a big bush beard. Yeah. There you go. There you go. And the staff, like I said, maybe you have a staff with some heads. Some of those will look at those masks again. And maybe they go round. Just from what I saw. What is the ability? Again, that also will come into play, even though, yeah, we've gone with a staff for now, but this is just a draft. I could change my mind later because if I want to come up with the right ability for the character that fits what I want to do, that fits maybe the character that he is, but you know, for the sake of this workshop, we would just kind of go with our first instinct. It could change. We'll go with our first gut, but I highly recommend. I highly recommend having multiple iterations and not going exactly with your first idea. So I'm blowing this up. I like the general shape. I see I did this pattern here, and I did it in threes. That's a very common thing you will find in character design. A lot of stuff is done in threes. It just feels very neat. It's very common. Now I'll just be going in with more detail. And this is a character that could literally end up, he's not really holding it like a staff. So I might change it. I might have him hold it a little bit closer to, say, how a Gandalf, another sorcerer or wizard or whatever you want to call it, would hold it. I think he's holding it more like a baseball bat, which not really the exact vibes we're going for. Off the top of my head, I would probably name this wand maybe Inze, which is like the last three letters of my name, which I believe mean either the tail of a lion or like the staff of a king or something like that, which might be appropriate. It's a villainous character. So for the eyes, even the shape language of the eyes, you see characters in anime or manga, whatever, they have maybe circular eyes for more soft type characters, or a square. For, like I said, just like having that shape language stuff going on. If you look at Ida, Bakugo, Deku, they're perfect examples of the shapes that are chosen by the creator of My Hero Academia and how those perfectly fit those characters. And so here I'm going for a triangle thing. That's just where my mind is. Darker lines at the bottom. Like a dot for the eyes. I don't want a character that, you know, visually looks likable like that. So he just looks, he doesn't look too redeemable. I'm contemplating, beard that covers the mouth completely, or again, this is where you have different iterations and maybe you have different versions and you compare. One other great advice that I think is to, if you have somebody around you with some credibility to get feedback from, that also helps a great deal. I could experiment with that whole mouth thing where you have almost like a gauge for the mouth. I don't know if it works here. I'll need to reference that just to make sure, and also try to find, understand what that symbolizes before I just throw that in there. This is just me experimenting, playing around with it. But again, for the sake of this workshop, we're just going to keep it somewhat simple. And then after this, you guys can kind of ask questions as I work. As I put this character together. Characters in this world usually have a badge as well. So maybe a badge will go in somewhere. Or the badge would be on his bead. On the beads. I think that makes a little more sense. A scar. Usually I give scars, even like here, there is history for the reason that I've given this scar. And so that comes into play. You're drawing from cultures, but you're also drawing from the character's backstory, why they would choose to wear these things. He is a character of status. That's why I've chosen to associate his design with a lot of things that symbolize status based off of, where I believe he's from, kind of. And I will be, as I work, I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys might have as we close.
Thank you so much, Lunce. This has been an amazing presentation, and there's a lot of questions. So let's get into it. One of the most popular ones are from Anonymous, but has 28 votes. So let's see. How would you approach using inspiration from a culture you don't come, but respectfully?
That I don't?
Yeah, a culture that you don't come from, but you will approach respectfully for your characters.
That's where the research comes into play, and you want to be very careful that you're being respectful to that, right? That's really it. You just have to be very, very careful. I gave an example with say Middle Eastern culture or things like that. There are certain things you could do that would be disrespectful to, let's say, a hijab type character, maybe that wears a hijab. You just need to understand the world you're walking into. And here I can even do like what you find in one of those very wizardy type hats. Anyways, you just have to be very careful and do thorough research. That way, people from that culture, when they come across your work, they're able to, like, you wouldn't be accused of anything, because like you need to do it in a way where when they come across your work, whether they realize you're part of that culture or not, they understand it's clear that you've done your homework. And in some ways you could get extra respect for it. It's kind of like Eminem. Probably one of the greatest rappers
I think we lost connection with Odunse with his main camera. Mhm. Okay, we had some technical issues, but we'll be connecting Odunse really soon. So in the meantime, if you want to follow Odunse, just follow him on his social media as with manga, and you can find him on Instagram, Twitter, and also remember to follow him on Saturday AM social media for his comics. Also, you can find it on YouTube as White Manga OG. You will find on the Nightbot comment all of the information. Um, Instagram, I can see Twitter, Twitch, and yeah. Another comment is remember to participate in our giveaway, retweeting our post on Twitter. At the end of the session, you will know the
Can you
winners
hear
of this
me?
contest.
Is
So yes,
is everything back or
yes, we can hear you. Yeah,
the one recording the screen, is that good? Oh,
yeah, the
okay.
main one.
Did y'all hear the answer I gave?
Yes, or yeah,
Y'all
exactly.
y'all 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 didn't hear the greatest Eminem analogy I gave? Gosh, y'all missed out.
Uh, uh,
Y'all missed.
can you repeat us, please?
So I said Eminem is a great example of someone who, is generally considered probably one of the greatest rappers in the game. But part of that is because, even though he's white and he's going into something that's predominantly black, the game he respects the game, but the game respects him because they know he's a student of the game. And even though maybe he might have had some advantages being white, there were disadvantages coming into that space to begin with because he was white. It's like, oh, white boy rapping. So, but he overcame that because there are a lot of people that respect him because they know he's a student of it and he did his homework. So I think if you can sell that when you're drawing from cultures that aren't yours, if the person from the other culture is able to come in and recognize that you were being respectful and you did your homework, I think you should be good.
Awesome. Um, let's see. The next question, also a very popular one and a very interesting
I'm
one.
giving him some locks.
Josie. Josie says, "Hey, with big fan. When creating multiple characters for a clan or a tribe, how can I balance consistency with avoiding repetitiveness in patterns, themes, etc.?"
Say that. How can you balance consistency? What?
Avoiding repetitiveness in patterns for a clan or a tribe when creating multiple characters.
Is again, you kind of need to do more, I guess, story development aspect of things. There's always it always kind of goes back and forth. Which one do you do first? The character design or the world, or do you come up with the character design or the story for it goes back and forth, and this, regardless of which one came first, it can always um they kind of go back and forth and influence each other, and you can keep tweaking things until you're happy with what you have. With that, I would say you want to make sure that you can identify, the differences between them. An example of that would be like from a you identify the differences between them from a um, description standpoint, from a backstory standpoint. An example would be if you look at the tribes in Black Panther, right? The one with the Winston Duke one, you can clearly tell they were more battle oriented. They were more, all of that, and that could come into play with how you design them. even though there will be a couple similarities with other tribes here and there, but then there will be other aspects of what they do that's distinct. Or maybe if they're more based in the aquatic life aspect of things, then they'll maybe have, I don't know, maybe they wear fish bones for necklaces or whatever. But maybe everybody wears bones, but one wears fish, one wears this, one wears that, and there are many ways you can. There are many ways you can differentiate. And if it's something where it's more even characters that are from the same aspect or clan, even the way they wear the same things can help tell you what type of character they are. Example of that would be, say, if you look at the captains in Bleach, they're all wearing uniform. Or in Fire Force, I haven't even seen Fire Force, but they're all kind of wearing uniform. But the way they wear it, the way they wear that uniform, kind of tells you who they are. So you just kind of need to understand who they are and why they're different, not just visually. And I think that'll help you with what to watch out for from a visual standpoint. With this character right here, I'm starting to feel it's a little bit chaotic. And again, I'm trying to keep things simple. But to be fair, it's chaotic right here in the facial area. It draws a lot of attention to that. But the rest of the body is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Open to more questions.
Yes. So when you start creating your characters, do you create like a model sheet to know, okay, this character will have this type of costume, just to organize yourself on the project?
Because I'm a one man, it depends if you are working with a team where everybody kind of needs to be on the same page. It's a little different, but with me being a one man army, I didn't necessarily need to do all of that. But you can do it to be more organized, but you don't always have to do it. That's just to keep it short so we can get more questions. That's all I kind of have to say with that. You could do it, and it'll make you more organized if you do. But do you 100% need to, especially if you're working pretty much alone? Not necessarily.
Sophie asks, do you have any tips on how you make an outfit look more detailed, but without adding a lot of more smaller accessories like belt or buttons?
Sometimes sometimes the material, or if the material is worn out, you can tell a story with the character design as well. If he's wearing armor and the armor is worn, if they have certain accessories, can kind of give audiences some insight on, say, the path that this character has walked, walked in your life. But if you're just not trying to add so much, sometimes just the design of, say, the clothing that they're wearing, where it's organic. Not everybody's not walking around wearing just plain material. You can see here, even with the character that I'm working with here, it's not, the design is actually not complicated as much, really. Maybe there might be stuff underneath his clothing, but we haven't gotten into that. But just at first glance, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward, and it's really just, you have this design, this pattern on the clothing that's helping, just to add more fluff to the design. And so the patterns on clothing is one way to do it. There are many other ways, but that's one. Again, this is Apple Black. Apple Black Volume 1 and 2 are currently available everywhere. It follows Sano, the lead, who is prophesied to be this kind of savior of this world, and he has this. He's prophesied to be the savior of this world. However, he has like visions that point to him potentially being quite the opposite. And he's blessed with this powerful arm called the Rhodes, arm of a god, arm of the god of sorcery. and it's a fun shonen action adventure type series, and he is also plagued by the demise of his dad, who is almost like a scientist type figure who developed something called Apple Black. It's kind of like a MacGuffin in the series, where everybody kind of inherited their sorcery powers from the ancestors. But as generations goes by, that sorcery ability kind of dies with the bloodline of the tribes that are in this world. And so his research was able to rejuvenate those sorcery abilities. And so you can imagine a tribe gets their hand on it, or the wrong person gets their hand on that research, they'll be able to rejuvenate their abilities and really have the upper hand above everybody else. Thanos prophesies to save this world from impending doom called the Infinite Night. And he is just plagued. He just sees signs and is worried about the potential of him being the opposite, probably the doom itself. Adding some fur here, open to more questions.
Okay, I think we are nearly reaching the end. So one last question. How do you balance writing and world building? If a perfect scene for the story clashes with a world building detail, what would you drop?
If the perfect scene, is that what you said?
Yeah, if a perfect scene for the story clashes with a world building detail, what would you drop? What's the priority that you do when creating the story?
Okay, what do I prioritize? It depends on what you mean by the perfect scene. Usually, when you're coming up with your story in the beginning stages, you'd want to have like some basis principles and morals to help guide you in your decision making um, throughout the series. And if you're creating something, if by perfect scene you mean story wise, it makes sense, but it clashes with the world building. I think I don't. I'm a little confused as to how it will clash with the world building. But let's say it doesn't fit the world and there's overlap, then I just wouldn't do it. I guess, if that makes sense. But I think
Uh-huh.
it's more about what is in line with the principles and morals that I've set out to tell within the story. And if it's in line with that, or the ideology of the characters involved, if it's in line with that, then that's what I go with. I'm finding it hard to see how it would clash with the world building, if that makes any sense. I think if there's an idea that you have that is the perfect idea, then it can't be the perfect idea and clash with the world building. If it's the perfect idea, then either it does not clash with the world building, or there is a way to rewrite it so that it is in line with the world building or in line with the story and the principles. So maybe you just need to think a little harder about ways to make it work.
Mhm. And just to finish, I think this is a great way to finish. Regarding researching cultures, do you have any recommendations for start creating your characters based on different worlds?
So recommendations of what cultures?
Yeah, somebody says like, do you have any books, sites where you start
Oh, oh.
looking for references?
Like I said, the best one of the best places to do that is just one, if you have a culture or something or wherever you want to draw from in your head already, then there are many places. The Pinterest is great, Behance, even Google Images, right? Whatever works for you. And then uh, good books when it comes to world building would be um, the creator of JoJo has a manga theory book out that can help you with story stuff and character design stuff as well. I've gone what I think it's Manga Theory by Araki. If you search that, you'll be able to get more. And then there's this book available, actually coming out this summer. It's another book. It's part of the book line. You see Apple Black over here. You have all these other books. These are more, these are fiction, right? Apple Black, Oblivion Rouge, Saigami, Hammer, and the list goes on. There's so many more. Clock Striker. If you go to Saturday-am.com, you will learn a whole lot about us. And in the graphic novel page, that tab, you'll see all our books. And please, I appreciate it if you guys can go pre-order either Apple Black Volume 1 and 2, or just look at what's out there and what tickles your fancy. But from a tutorial standpoint, one of our books is a how to draw diverse manga. And it goes into detail about, how to draw basic stuff, hairstyles, the best ways to do it from diverse creators. And so it's not just teaching you one way to draw. Is a lot of how to draw books kind of show you one way to do things. This one kind of does that to a degree, but is also a diverse cast of artists. But then there are also things within there that encourage you to come up with your own ways of doing the same thing, coming up with your own style of how you want to draw, as well as doing some basic tutorials, giving you a foundation. But then there's a lot of stuff in here about diversity and its importance and how to approach it carefully, it's teaching you how to draw, and in a way is advising you how not to. And I think I'm a little biased, but I would say this is probably one of the best how to draw books out there. And then there is some stuff in there that touches on culture and diversity and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, and then there's a whole character design theory stuff at the end. A lot of artists have their character designs there, and some discussions on the decisions that they made. This is actually from Norse mythology and like how they drew from certain cultures. So you can learn a lot about these various artists, talented artists in here, and why they made the decisions they did. There's a lot of sensitivity stuff in here, shape language, all that kind of character design stuff at the end, theory, even manga drawing tools. The list goes on. So this is a book here I recommend. I recommend the Manga Theory book, but that covers a whole lot more than just character design. It covers a lot of things. Off the top of my head, those are the two books that I can think of.
Thank you so much, Dulce. Thank you so much for all the recommendations, for such a great presentation. So we also want to thank all of you who have been attending to our workshops, and especially with Odunsis. So before we go, we're just going to share one last slide of information. Stick around for our special giveaway. You will find the link in chat, and you can enter the giveaway throughout the break. For more details, check out the giveaway link and let the moderator know if you have any questions. Don't forget to follow Odunse on his social media. And also, we also have many fun videos and tips and tricks around the 1 hour break. Our next session, posting with Wormforge, will start at 12 p.m. California time. So thanks again, Odunse.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody who showed up. You can always reach out to me if you have more questions, and I'll do my best to answer them directly.
Thanks so much. And to all of you, stick around, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.